I walk, I take the subway, I make my kids walk and ride their bikes and take the subway. It's actually healthier for our family. I can live that way.
I can live that way, but I choose not to live that way.
Right.
Welcome back to Northern Perspective, everyone. I'm Cypher.
And I'm Fox. Hey, Cypher, do you remember that horrible press conference that Freeland gave in Prince Edward Island where she was called in to do damage control because the Liberals were losing their minds because the constituents wanted to burn them alive because of the carbon tax?
Yeah.
Well, would you believe me if I told you she was lying when she made all those claims?
Yeah.
Good, because she was lying.
Let's take a look.
Here's an article we found today from the Toronto Sun. Chrystia Freeland reportedly spends thousands on limos, taxis, and GTA. Transportation expenses uncovered in access to information records. So much for her claims about riding her bike and taking public transit. Freeland billed $3,040 for limo and taxi rides, in addition to $6,736 for separate trips by her official chauffeur. These expenses don't include $781 spent by Freeland for cars and drivers at the October 30th, 2021 United Nations Conference on Climate Change in Scotland. Freeland earlier said she led Canadians by example on climate change. Freeland testified last June 7th at the Senate National Finance Committee.
I do think all of us who are in these positions of responsibility need to take kind of a deep breath and say, okay, what did I do today to fight climate change? What did I do today to be sure that we're doing the right things in Canada?
Blacklocks asked for the figures after Freeland said last July 27th she did not own a car and used only carbon-friendly methods to travel through the Toronto area.
So if you're wondering what Blacklocks is, that is a kind of an independent news outlet out of Ottawa, and it seems intent on holding these people accountable. Now, you need a subscription to actually see the full article, but we did want to actually give these fine people some credit because they're the ones that actually broke this story, and they picked a very appropriate picture of Freeland here. That's her in Toronto, allegedly with her bike.
With her red bike.
Now, the funny thing is Fox was talking about a press conference earlier that she did back in July on Prince Edward Island. We did a video about that, if you remember. And just to refresh your memory, this is what she said.
Do you really understand? I really understand the challenges. And I do believe that the challenges are different in small towns, in places with less public transit than they are in big cities. You know, I right now am an MP for downtown Toronto. A fact that still shocks my dad is I don't actually own a car because I live in downtown Toronto. I'm like, I don't know, 300 meters from the nearest subway. I walk, I take the subway, I make my kids walk and ride their bikes and take the subway. It's actually healthier for our family. I can live that way.
I can live that way, but I choose not to live that way.
Right. I
That's
can, but I don't.
Like, do as I say, not as I do. Yeah, I walk. You know, maybe she walks from her front door to the door of the limousine. That's what it sounds like. Or she walks from her front door to the door of the SUV that picks her up and drives her ass all around Toronto because she doesn't want to walk. She doesn't want to slum it up with us common people and take the subway.
Well, she definitely doesn't want to take the subway. Unfortunately, I saw on Reddit today that there was a video somebody had taken over the weekend of themselves being on the subway, and there was a lot of people who were quite clearly under the influence of something. We'll just say that.
Well, that's another product of the Liberal policies, unfortunately. But let's go back to Prince Edward Island for a minute and listen to Freeland continue her patronization of Eastern Canadians.
A lot of people here on PEI are really feeling the pinch. Whether it is at the grocery store or rent or when they're filling their tank up with gas. Our government absolutely recognizes that. And the other thing I do want to say is I recognize that now is a challenging time. And, you know, hearing from people here at United Way, we heard a lot about the challenges the most vulnerable people are facing on PEI. It's been a tough few years. And what I really want to say to Canadians and to people on PEI is, we get that.
Yeah, you get that. You really get that. And this was her carbon tax tour out in Eastern Canada, and it obviously failed. She didn't convince anyone that this was a good idea, and she didn't convince anyone that they're actually going to be getting more money back. Some of the other clips that were in there that she talked about was, well, you're all going to be getting your climate action incentive checks very soon, and that's going to make a very big difference in 8 out of 10 Canadians, and yada, 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 yada.
Which we know isn't true. We're not going to bust out the chart again.
No.
You guys have seen it.
You've seen it too many times. So, you know, really what she is trying to do there is lie to Canadians. And the funny thing is they didn't buy it. And that forced the Liberals to remove the carbon tax on home heating. This alleged carbon tax that was so great for Canadians because it was saving them money.
But you forget, Cypher, it wasn't home heating. It was only home heating oil. So those of us, the majority of Canadians, that heat their homes with natural gas, well, we're just SOL.
Yeah, sucks to be us because, you know, we're doing it cleaner than home heating oil. Not that home heating oil people are dirty polluters. They don't have another option. Because if you live in rural Canada, you're not going to have a natural gas line out there most of the time. You're not going to have an option for your standard furnace. So you're going to have a home heating oil furnace. It's just how it is. And we won't even get started on the heat pumps. Don't worry, folks. But, you know, when we started looking up this article and we saw these charges, made us ask a question. This is just on your limos and your SUVs. You know, what else isn't included here? So we did a little digging. This is what we found. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the whole Liberal cabinet and their expenditures from April of 2022 until March of 2023. Why that specific range, are you asking? Well, that is the government fiscal year. Why does it go from that time? Couldn't tell you.
Nobody knows.
It doesn't make any sense, like most government things. So you'll notice at the top, the Right Honorable Justin Trudeau, and let's just focus on climate change, right? Let's focus on what Freeland said. What did I do today to save Canada from climate change? Well, apparently in that year, what Trudeau did was he spent $984,330 on transportation / communications. Let's be real, there's no communications in there. It's all transportation. Burning jet fuel, burning car gas, driving all around Canada.
Oh, I bet the communications are those cell phones for his kids.
Oh, yeah, maybe. Right Honorable, sorry, there is no right there. There's just Honorable Chrystia Freeland, $343,567 on transportation. And total expenses for the both of them, $1.268 million for Trudeau and $353,927. Now, some of the stats that you may have seen out there that are actually being thrown around on Twitter for people that are coming after Pierre saying, he spent all this money in all these months. That's staff. That's the cost to run their office. That's not in here, just so you know. I specifically took the staffing costs out because I'm not going to penalize Justin Trudeau for the people that are actually working for him and paying their salaries, right? So we're being fair. These are the expenses, though. Then we said, okay, well, how much does the whole cabinet spend in a year? Well, that is $7.4 million total. And just on transportation, the whole cabinet spent $6.785 million. This climate conscious, what can I do today? Tax every Canadian for everything to do with gas and oil Liberal cabinet. They spent $6.7 million of our money burning carbon, as they would say, to get around this country. I think that's very interesting and very hypocritical, as I'm sure most of you do. Moving on, we then look at Chrystia Freeland's expenses for the last 12 months. And this is specifically around travel. So what this is typically travel out of country and travel motoring around Ottawa. Now, you'll notice that the top expenses, there's a trip for New Delhi, India. There's a trip for Tokyo, Japan. Those are $15,000 a piece. But the one that caught my eye was number 4. What's number 4, you ask? Well, it turns out the Canadian taxpayer did actually pay for Chrystia Freeland to take a trip to Davos, Switzerland.
And what's in Davos, Switzerland?
Well, what and when? Because this was on January 17th to January 20th. So what is in Davos, Switzerland indeed? Well, that would be none other than the annual meeting for the World Economic Forum. How do we know that? Because here she is at the World Economic Forum on January. So we literally foot the bill for her to go to the World Economic Forum. Awesome. That cost the Canadian taxpayers over $10,000.
So why are we paying for Freeland to go to some fancy rich person conference where she's, what is she, like the finance
She's on the board of directors.
Yeah, that's it. Why? Why are we paying for that? If she's making, oh gosh, I have to think here. She's making a ton of money. She's making,
I think she's making
close to $300,000 a year, just her base salary as an MP plus being in the cabinet. Plus I think she gets a little bit extra as the finance minister. Plus she's on the WEF board. Are they paying her? Like, why do taxpayers have to pay for her to go to this conference? If you want to go on your own, pay your own way. Like, don't expect us to foot the bill.
100%. If you want to go to this, fine, go. But you know what? We even have a problem with that. If you want to go to this, resign as an MP, resign as the Deputy Prime Minister, and resign as the Finance Minister. You shouldn't be there. Not on this type of organization. Not when you're a part of government. Trudeau had to resign from the Trudeau Foundation. That was due to conflict of interest. You should not be allowed to be serving on the board of directors of another organization while you're in the government. Shouldn't be allowed to do that.
Yeah, that would be like being on a board for like a company.
For anything.
Yeah, for a company that actually like makes a profit. You know what I mean? Like, why? This doesn't make sense.
So, this is the hypocrisy exposed of Chrystia Freeland that we all knew it was there. But it's interesting when you see the numbers right in front of you. So if you're interested, you can find these numbers yourself. We've put the links into the description, as we always do. You just have to play around on the website. But we wanted to put that right in front of you and just slap Chrystia Freeland down a bit and ensure that nobody's forgetting this arrogant, hypocritical witch.